A human being is part of the whole, which we call the universe. A part limited in time and space. He or she experiences himself or herself, his or her thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest. A kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. The striving to free oneself from this delusion is one of the issues of true spirituality. Not to nourish the delusion, but try to overcome it, is the way to reach the attainable measure of peace of mind. And I think this very old craft of making bonsai trees puts the practitioner in a state of more attentive attention that could bring about a sense of connection through the quiet. So I chose the art of bonsai in that regard. And also the art of Suzuki, which is collecting rocks, is a form that monks could take to walk and be very quiet and attentive and see what rock they may become revealed to them, and then it's collected as an art form. I think these are, in thinking about it at this moment, it seems different than our current art of painting on canvases and easel painting in a certain way. But in doing some research, there was a movement in Europe in the 19th century with a woman who started it. She was very rebellious, from Romania, I think, named Madame Blavatsky. And Madame Blavatsky left home against her parents' wishes, I think, to travel to India and Tibet and discover the world of focus on the more inner life that she had a feeling for. And then in my reading about it, she eventually set up, which I'm not a member of, I'm not supporting or not supporting. She formed the Theosophical Society, bringing a lot of knowledge from Tibet into Europe. And in my readings, she influenced people like Mondrian and Malevich. And then there was the movement of Zen Buddhism across India into China, into Japan, into America. And this influenced a lot of art. A lot of modern day artists studied with Professor Suzuki, who started coming to Columbia University in the 1950s. Philip Guston and John Cage and Robert Rauschenberg, Jasper Johns, and Marcel Duchamp, who some people feel is the father of contemporary art, was extremely Buddhist in the sense that he offered questioning. His art was questioning what is art, and why can't this upside down toilet be art? And then some people feel the upside down toilet looks like a Buddha in its shape. and naming the toilet some ridiculous name, this illogic. And this went on to so many of the surrealist painters as well, Paul Klee, and many of these people studied the writings of P.D. Uspensky, who was a Russian philosopher who wrote Tertium Organum and The Fourth Way. And then, I'm saying a lot. And then Uspensky wrote such brilliant books that he met somebody who spent his entire youth traveling to Tibet and India and China to find out deep truths. And when this person, whose name was George Gurdjieff, met Uspensky, he said, if you understood what you wrote about, I'd bow down and be your student. So Gurdjieff came to Europe from Russia. After the revolution, he had to escape and brought a great deal of knowledge about a certain type of working on oneself. One of Uspensky's book was called the evolution of the inner self, the psychology of individual evolution. And he brought the whole idea that just because we're born and grow up and have full lives doesn't mean we're fully evolved. Something else can evolve. And to put it in a short form, what could evolve is a sense of growth of being. That each one of us are not fully evolved at any age. Something can grow besides more money or more things. Maybe what could grow even in the growth of being and personal evolution could be the sense of connectedness to nature and the universe that's real, that's not just in the head. And so a school was formed. Gurdjieff came to America in the 1920s, which was extraordinary in itself that he didn't have a lot of money, and he brought an orchestra and all the dances that performed at Carnegie Hall, and they went to Chicago. The Tibetan dances in America and the study of the dances continue to this day, and in fact, they started teaching the dances in China recently. And these dances called sacred gymnastics help bring the people who study them into a more whole state of presence. And I was fortunate enough to be interested in Zen Buddhism. It was very interesting in college, as it was, there was Allen Ginsberg and so many different people. And I was fortunate to meet William Segal, Bill Segal, who helped bring Professor Suzuki to America and tried to bring a form of that type of work where you could have a normal life and not be a monk. And in a way, the form of the work on oneself is your life, whatever it might be. Single or married, or mother or father, or dentist, or philosopher, or scientist, or accountant. And so they started a school in New York in the 1920s, and it continues. And they had a retreat, and in the retreat we each had a little house to study crafts. So I was lucky to be in the pottery. And our day often began, and there were weekends and weeks, just sitting quietly, trying to come to a sense of presence, and then going out and doing our work in the pottery. And it was oriented toward Japanese pottery. And traditionally, the Japanese pottery was not personal. So for years, I never signed my work. And it was a very interesting kind of education to work with others producing pottery, and to try to understand a little bit in our small group what it was like to be a Japanese potter, which could be a whole village. Dr. Yanagi wrote a book called The Unknown Craftsman, and we read this book before it was published. And Dr. Yanagi, who studied with Professor Suzuki, started the Folk Art Museum in Japan, and talks a lot about beauty and what is beauty, and I brought a quote or some words of his which I think are pertinent to a discussion about beauty. It's 2 pages. First impressions, as is well known, are often astonishingly sound. And that is because we are so constituted as to perceive others with living eyes and to see objects with fresh perception. In first impressions, the faculty of intuition functions most freely, permitting us to look at unfamiliar objects with ever new and living perception. With familiar objects, the process becomes increasingly less functional, but that, of course, is only because our own sense of perception has become dulled, not because the intrinsic value of the objects has lessened. A man of intuition is one capable of always deriving fresh impressions from objects. Intuition is the power of seeing at this very moment. Once there was a man from Kishibe whose unfortunate wife had been bedridden for 2 years. He himself swept the house every day, cooked all the meals, and washed the clothes. When a compassionate villager remarked how tiring all this must be, he replied, "I do not know what fatigue is because caring for my wife every day is always both a first experience and a last experience. There is no doing it again, so I never tire of doing it." He always lived in the immediate moment, in the right now. Indeed, living in the right now is the true condition of man's being. And when he looks at objects in the right now, beauty will never conceal itself from him. For intuition means nothing more or less than seeing right now. A man of intuition may be defined as one who allows impressions to be forever new. From this point of view, an object of art is created by those who look at it, and a man of intuition is an able artist. Why do we long for beauty? The Buddhist would reply that the world of beauty is our home, and that we are born with a love for home. To long for beauty, therefore, is the same as to long for home. But home, as we know, is the world of non-dual entirety. Everything is divided, yet yearns to be reunited. Everything has, so to speak, been divided in order to long to be one again. Regarding a beautiful object, then, is the same as looking at one's own native home. Put in another way, it is the same as looking at the original condition of man himself. He who buys a beautiful object is in reality buying himself. And he who looks at a beautiful object is seeing in it his primordial self. In an ardent lover of Sung pottery, the pottery recognizes its own home. Conversely, the lover recovers his home in the pottery. Here, the viewer and the viewed are not two entities. One more page. The first to recognize the beauty of miscellaneous objects was the first generation of tea masters, men of consummate taste. People have largely forgotten that most of these objects, which are now worth incredible sums of money, are known as omibutsu, objects of great renown. They were nothing more than common, ordinary, everyday things. In fact, it can be said that it was precisely their commonness, their ordinariness, that produced the elegance of their natural flowing freedom. Without this, they would never have achieved this status. Reflecting on the beauty of the famous tea bowls, 7 particular aesthetic points were noted. Later, these points came to be thought of as an essential criteria for the creation and appreciation of this beauty. But if the original artisans had been told of this development, they would certainly have been utterly amazed. Not surprisingly, there were no works of any excellence created on the basis of these rules. These later pieces abandoned the realm of craftsmanship and became works of art. One more page, and then maybe we can talk. It's enough. It should not be forgotten that the profound, simple beauty of tea bowls is the effortless product of common craftspeople. Nowadays, tea houses are built with an emphasis on elegance and taste, belying the original concept of the tea house as a humble hut. Rustic homes in the countryside still have the simple, honest beauty, a quality which tea houses were meant to emulate. Now, however, tea houses have become embodiments of wealth and affluence, which are signs of present-day decadence. The true meaning of the tea ceremony is being forgotten. The beauty of the way of tea should be the beauty of the ordinary, the beauty of honest poverty. I think that's enough. Maybe there's something we could talk about. Or not, or just listen.
Did you say you want to talk about that now, or?
No, you talk.
Oh, we talk? Oh, I can't talk?
You
can. Yeah, what I get out of it,
Wait, do you need the microphone there?
No, I think they can hear me probably.
I think,
They're recording here.
They're recording.
Thanks,
so,
Darius.
so that it syncs up.
Now I'm gonna get nervous. And
I know,
not say.
yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. You're good. Sorry. Thank you.
Hello? Nothing?
No,
It's
fine.
not
It's
amplifying.
going- It's in it.
It's
Oh,
just
okay.
recording
Oh.
it.
Yeah, to me, it's like the whole question is, it's a big question about beauty. It's always been out in the fringe areas of our life, kind of like. And at least for me, it's like, I think I'm like most other people. It's like, there's a connection, but you don't know what it is. It's like, and what he was saying is, it seems to be quite a bit of a question, but he tries to answer it. And but he says it goes back to the primordial beauty of us, whatever that is in our brain, But it's such a binary thing. It's this duality between beauty and ugliness, and he mentions that too. In the end, where it was supposed to be meant for the common man, to me, he's saying, where the rich kind of stole that concept that the beauty is ours now. But you can't possess beauty. It's just there to observe, right? So, yeah, I think that's the main thing. It's still kind of a big question, and it's trying to be fulfilled. And I just would like to mention, I read this book a long time ago that always stuck with me. It was called, and talk about duality, it was called Soldier of the Last War. And I'm not going to say what it was all about, but in the end, the main character is an old man, and he keeps walking and pacing himself with a very young companion, and he's walking off into the Italian Alps or somewhere, I don't know. But he just keeps walking until he dies. But he was a professor of beauty after he became an adult out of the Italian army and all the stuff he had gone through. But it always stuck with me how his main focus was beauty, and it seemed to be like a driving force. He kept walking, whereas his young companion didn't want to keep going. I don't know. It's a great book if you ever can find it. It's not famous at all or anything. It's Soldier of the Last War. But anyway, that's all I got.
You can leave.
Anybody else?
Okay. Thanks. Hi, Bruce. Congratulations on the
Hey.
show.
Thank you.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
And I know your practice, and I know your work, and I'm lucky to. And it's interesting to me that you choose to highlight the idea of craft and the idea of beauty, both things that maybe at a certain point in the hierarchy of arts become these subjects to be held lesser than in recent contemporary culture, and the craft has a certain connotation to it. I wonder if you think about these things about devotion and doing it over and over again and learning your craft, and it's different than some of the other arts that enter into museums, because they can come from not having to have technical ability anymore. The craft can be pushed aside, and sometimes is something looked down on, and beauty is as well. So for you to heighten both of these is interesting. Surrounding the bonsai concept is so sweet and poignant, because I don't know very much about bonsai. I wonder if you could speak more on the art of bonsai, but the one thing that stuck with me when somebody said was that you think 1,000 times and you then cut. Like that it's a very determinate, precise thing, and that you're dealing with a living bonsai tree. And I'm imagine that there must be a bonsai that outlives the original owner, and then there's the idea of passing that on. And then the idea that comes to me from this beautiful talk is the idea of that you don't own a work of art, you're a custodian of that work of art, and you take care of it and pass that on. So those are some of the things that your ideas brought to mind. If you could speak on any of them, that'd be great.
I think one thing that you mentioned, I think, is true for craft, but anything. And I wanted to mention when I was an apprentice at the Blackberry Pottery, and she studied with Gurdjieff and Uspensky and other people, she said it was just as important to, oh wait, oh, it's sunny.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's just as important to be attentive when you wash the dishes as throwing a pot or painting a vase. How you walk across the room with attention is just as important. When an artist and a craftsman, they're not different. It's and how to look at it as trying to work on oneself to be more whole, like listening with the whole of ourselves, not just our brain, to feel our body, to practice being whole. And I think when you go to a lot of museums, especially certain like Egyptian art, that is art and craft. Are they separate? And but it's a good question about this separation of art and craft, but who's making it and what are they practicing? Microphone.
First, I want to thank you so much for this wonderful introduction to your ideas and other ideas that I haven't thought about in a while. but I feel like beauty is here and we can accept it, and then we are feeling a feeling of grace. So I wanted to say that.
Yeah, it's grace often has a connotation for some people that's very religious, but it must mean something, right? Where something enters, you open, and there's an energy that helps not separate. Yes. Please.
I didn't want to take
Love to hear. No.
So many ideas.
This is, by the way, Carol Saft had a show here at Duck Creek in the same gallery at the beginning of the season.
And it's interesting to see how the gallery's transformed every time there's another artist there.
Sure.
I feel like when I'm in the presence of your work, I feel the whole of who you are. And to me, that's a sign of a great surrender to what you're doing, which is what every artist wants. And we know that art is as long as civilization. And this is a time of the year that is a new year for people who are Jewish. And the turning over of the year always brings the story of Adam and Eve. And at a certain point, if you hear a rabbi talk about the new year, they might mention that when man was presented by God, I'm not expecting anyone to be Jewish here or know any of these things. I'm just thinking about something, that man was neither woman nor man. And when Eve came to keep company with Adam, there was the idea of knowledge. So as artists, we sort of have to leave behind any grasping of knowledge, because what we try to do is surrender to an experience. So I feel like your talk really reminded us about the importance of being vulnerable and surrendering to the process of living, which is how you can feel beauty. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
What I really love about this body of work, Bruce, is the connection to nature, and you brought that out in your talk, and the beauty that's all around us, the beauty of nature, and yet it's evolving constantly, it's changing, it's growing, just like the human spirit always has room to evolve. And I thought that was a beautiful part of your talk. I really like that, and I know that what you believe in, but as a ceramicist, taking that organic clay and making it into a piece of nature, and the bonsai that sometimes are thousands of years old that evolved and continue to evolve was just very beautiful to me.
Yeah, please.
You should respond.
Well, I brought two really great coffee table books on bonsai and rocks to look at, and some others. And I did want to make one comment about, I have a microphone, that there's a lot of Adam and Eve in all the religions, and American Indian, and just on and on. But some people feel, what is this thing that happened called knowledge? It wasn't there originally, and then the snake and the whole fable, what was knowledge? And I don't know. But I remember Krishnamurti. Did you ever read Krishnamurti? Krishnamurti said, when a child is told that's a bird, and it has the word or the knowledge bird, he no longer sees the bird. In the same way, it's become a word, it's become a label. It's not a direct impression that a child can have, and that is still in us to have. And that would be a kind of evolution back to a state of intuition and perceiving directly, listening directly.
If I may, one of the things that I've learned working with the artists here at Duck Creek is, in reflection sort of what you're saying about religion, is that throughout the development of civilization scientifically, art was a way of communicating, the creation of symbols and objects. As Ian Swarty, who was an exhibitor here at Duck Creek earlier this season too, brought sort of home in a talk that he did for us, was that making art, looking at art, it's a reflection of our human dignity. It's made by a human, and by looking at and engaging with these objects, we are seeing each other and our human dignity and sharing in that. And that's basically, to a large degree, how we evolve as a civilization, going from, sort of sprawling evolution to tribes and to sort of develop our intellect. And I do believe that it's just a really important thing that artists do in this era, in terms of, sort of the authenticity and the integrity that Bruce is talking about bringing to the creation of an object is, and what Darius was saying, and Carol, this vulnerability and this reflection of who you are and how you see your fellow man. So that's a really important part of what we do here. The environment that we're trying to create where people can actually have that experience. And then there was like a meme. I think it was a meme. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was somewhere on the internet that I read, had to have been over 8 or 10 years ago, that said, we thought we wanted success, but what we really want is wonder. And I think that's a big part of what Bruce is trying to communicate, is that the idea of success has sort of gotten away from us. And if we can just focus on what we're making and discovery, we'd be a lot happier as a community and as a civilization. So that's all I have to say for the moment.
I'll say something. Sure. Someone mentioned to me yesterday that there's an article in the Times about looking at a work of art for 3 hours straight. And it just made me think about everything you're saying here. And, particularly that you chose the bonsai, which is both spiritual and can actually cause you to want to do that particular thing. If you just look at one of them, it's such a story as you go around it, and the work in it and what it represents. I think you have evolved with your practice and your work. You have achieved that beautifully. So I'm going to try and look at your work for 3 hours.
Hi. I have a question more than a comment around beauty, but I wanted you to talk about maybe the connection or lack of connection between the fragility of bonsai, the fact that it's such a delicate process of maintaining a bonsai tree, and the delicacy of ceramic as a material. And then the Suzuki rocks being something that's in opposition to that. These are rocks that have been around for centuries, millennia, that are indestructible, yet you're rendering them out of ceramic. So in a way, like, I see them as like these sort of like fossilization of like both polar opposites or opposite ends of the spectrum, like something that's extremely delicate and precarious, the bonsai tree, and something that's virtually indestructible out of a material that is finicky, to say the least, and breakable, and yet also has the ability to last for centuries. So the question is, were you thinking about that, or was it... Do you have anything to say about it?
Well, it's a lot to address. Could you narrow it down?
So just the sort of delicacy of maybe you just talk about the bonsai being like this very delicate thing, you know, the idea of maintaining a bonsai. Like, I've heard or read that like bonsai masters like never leave their trees like for a 24-hour period because they're worried that they will die. You're choosing to, in a way, like take that form and make it semi-indestructible by fossilizing it in ceramic, or, you know, producing it in ceramic, which will, in theory, last for many, many decades, years, centuries to come.
40% of all the objects in the Metropolitan Museum are ceramic. 40%. And civilizations are discovered through their ceramics, so it is a very long-lasting material. I think I came from a different corner. I thought it would be interesting to use the bonsai form as canvas and just not worry that it looks like what the original tree looks like. So my point of view for these works was, wouldn't it be interesting to use the bonsai like you would a canvas and just not be confined to certain aspects of what it looks like naturally, for me, in this work. But I think what's interesting in studying bonsai, and you could see some, and there are bonsai conventions, you know, where they show people who've had, and some are hundreds of years old. They do evoke something maybe in the more traditional Eastern traditions of caring, of this sense of caring, which is to care so much. And as they would care for those rock gardens, which they would rake every day, or the idea of caring, and to care and be attentive. And that's such a concept, rather than pressing a button, having an instant answer. It's another quality of feeling that is so needed in our world, in the world. A level of feeling which it evokes, and which we need to think about and maybe learn how to develop more or consider.
One of the things I love about working with Bruce is that there are long, quiet pauses that I enjoy, and I've experienced this with a few artists that I've worked with, where room for contemplation and a conversation is, I think, rare these days. So it's one of the things that I have appreciated about, even in a text message, there's long gaps. Long gaps and big pauses, and then sort of random information that I get to lay in bed and contemplate. It's, you know, I mean,
We've
working
had a-
with Bruce has changed my life to some degree, because I don't mean to fluff you up to that.
No, it's all right. No, we
but
had a
you know,
very good connection. Yeah.
I was moving in this direction to begin with, and again, the culture of Duck Creek and what we're trying to offer here felt very much aligned with the things that he thinks about and contemplates, and this idea of the school again is called the Society of Experimental Education.
Studies.
Studies, sorry. Is this sort of enigmatic? It's, sorry, I'll have to be on camera instead of have
Oh,
conversation.
okay.
It's this really, the Society for Experimental Studies is this very sort of, to me, enigmatic. If you Google it, you'll find very little information there. Bruce made a point of letting me know that this was something that the people involved were not marketing or branding or pushing. They were just there studying, and it still exists. And maybe Bruce has implied that it's sort of making its way out into the world, but it sort of was just this magic discovery, or at least to me, this idea that programs like this or places like this exist without engaging in the aggressive sale of even a culture or the sale of an organization, and that was really exciting to me, and really sort of like helps me reframe what I'm doing, and like, you know, these discussions. I just feel very lucky to be in a position where I can. Sorry, now I sound like I'm like marketing Duck Creek at you, but it's true. It's having these opportunities to have these conversations with artists, giving them a platform and an opportunity to talk about the things that matter to them instead of selling their work. I guess that's always those things are always ideally sort of interconnected anyway, but and I don't want to sound like a complete communist, but you know, these are just the things that help our organization evolve, that I learn from the artists from year to year, and yeah, and just like, again, this is a safe space. Feel free to say whatever you want to say. You know, it's hard for me to participate in things like this. I'm not great at public speaking, but I do feel like the exchange of ideas is really important for people to participate in, and that's no pressure. We're almost at 1 o'clock, so we can, you know, let
2
all this
o'clock,
be.
you mean?
Sorry, 2 o'clock.
But maybe someone else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just, if you're not comfortable from the sunshine or something,
I'm okay.
get comfy.
This is my new assistant.
Hello, everyone.
I know him a week.
I just wanted to go back to the sort of conversation you were having about
Talk loud.
I wanted to just have a little talk about the conversation you were having about sort of craftsmanship and like artists and the sort of blurred lines between them. And I think an interesting comment you made was about the sort of unknown craftsman, and I was just sort of thinking about intentionality and sort of whether sort of approaching a project as an artist, getting your like personal sort of outlook and view on it is different than just sort of sitting there and like making a pot for the sake of it. Because I know you were speaking like about yourself as a craftsman, but I feel like you look at the work in there and it feels very much you, which I feel like is something that sort of separates what you are doing from just sort of traditional craftsmanship. I don't know. Yeah, that's about it.
Is that a question?
Yeah, it was just a sort of
sure.
question, comment, statement.
Well, we've have our own little society for experimental studies at the New York City studio together, Liam and I. It's been, have we not, for 4 days?
It's very, very nice.
Do you have you were talking about seeing birds before knowing the names for them. Do you have a way of doing that before starting your work?
No, but I do sometimes try to, I worked with this guy, William Segal, and he was a very worldly person who he had 4 homes and he had a very interesting life, but he would also say it's just good to stop. And I feel it relates to Carol, what Carol had said, just to abandon, that this is very good for one's day, to just try to stop. Maybe one sees one can't, but one could try again. And that is like, and then things start anew maybe, a little bit, fresh. It's not something we know. It can never be known because it's a stop of what's known. So it's a study. But I think athletes stop and artists and all.
It was very close beside me, so I'm also very interested in craft in all aspects of what I do, and I think coming out of I have a background of a lot of time, maybe too much time spent in art school, and people in art schools tend to be afraid of beauty or suspicious of it, and so it's refreshing to see someone who I would say almost earnestly engages with beauty in a way that feels brave. So thank you for sharing.
Mr. Segal would say if you look at something with great attention, even a blade of grass or garbage, you may see great beauty. It's the act of being fully engaged in the moment and taking in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like in another way of saying that I relate to is like if you go out and look for something, you often find it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something about too the bonsai and your sculptures, if you call them that, or your ceramic pieces, that reminds me, it's just, there are a lot of things in art that have a referent, right? Like that. Maybe the bonsai was in your mind and it wasn't a real bonsai, or maybe it was. I think about that when I'm looking at those, and I was thinking about that. I'm sure a lot of people here know it. That Vija Clemens work with the 2 rocks, the rock and then the facsimile of a rock, like a simulacrum, right? Like a copy of a copy. And also the idea of objects like that remain with people. I think those sat in her studio for 7 or 8 years before they went into that gallery, and they were incredible. And if you really looked, talking about spending time with work, if you really, really looked, you could tell which one was the rock and which wasn't. But yeah, there's a lot to think about here.
I think that goes back to what you were saying about the bird. It's an awareness now that, like, the awareness of knowing now that you've named that object and you can kind of keep going back and trying to forget what it is, if that makes sense. I feel like I have to do that a lot when I'm looking at art, trying not to put it in a box or assume that I know what it is until I've had the time to really observe it carefully.
Maybe one last quick question.
Quick?
You mentioned the Egyptian art, right? And I don't know, when I was a kid, I remember my parents dragged us out to go to the museum, and we would see Egyptian art and all the what do you call it, where the pharaohs were in those things. I forget what they're called. But anyways, there was a group called the Rosicrucians that put all this stuff on. I mean, are you familiar? I'm wondering, you were with an organization when you got started in your ceramics. I don't know if they're not really religious or something, but was there any particular Western, you got into the Zen Buddhism, but was there any particular Western group or organization that promotes beauty and art and stuff like that. You know, I mean, I don't know. I thought you might have something to say about that as far as a Western influence.
It's totally Western. It just had Eastern influences. Actually, it's very Western. And I could name names. I don't.
Oh, not
I'm not going
people, but I'm just
I
thinking.
could.
You know, there's.
Like Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah, but I mean, like organizations.
Frank Lloyd
or
Wright
something.
is Frank Lloyd Wright Western or Eastern?
No, I don't know. I would
He's
say
both,
Western.
sort of, in a way. Western.
Yeah.
Thank you. Why are you interested in something Western?
Well, I'm just thinking, you know, that's a big deal, you know, people waste their time a lot on religion and stuff like that. Is there, you know, a real thing about beauty and art and something worth striving for out there?
Yes.
And that's my question. So
Yes.
maybe there is.
Maybe there is.
I don't know. I don't know. I still haven't found one yet, but I'm just saying.
Well, maybe now you've been told it exists.
Well, yeah, I know the Zen Buddhism.
No, not Zen Buddhism, some other things.
Yeah.
But there are some interesting Buddhist groups in America. And Richard Gere just did a film about the Dalai Lama. He's good to listen to. Anyone who's sort of worked on themselves could be useful, but there are a lot of Western people and Western methods and things. There really are.
There is a
Ram Dass was from Harvard, please.
Ram Dass.
Ram Dass, yeah.
Sure.
There's a book by a critic named Dave Hickey that's titled On Beauty and talks a lot about making beautiful objects being the artist seeding to the audience. But that's kind of a counterpoint to, I think, what we're talking about, more to do with our relationship to art as a culture now. But anyway, I think maybe we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
It's hot in the sun.
I'm gonna read.
Thank you.
Could I read one
Oh, yeah,
sentence?
please.
If I can find it. I don't know if it's this. Do you want to hear this one sentence?
Yes.
The guy in the green shirt.
Yeah, sure.
This is Henry Miller, which I think is Western, no? The moment one gives close attention to anything, even a blade of grass, it becomes a mysterious, awesome, indescribably magnificent world in itself. Henry Miller.
Good note to hang up.
Okay.